I am Emily Gantert with the Georgia Center for Nonprofit, and we are here today to look at Google Ad Grants. And our great friends at Nonprofit Megaphone are here to tell you everything you need to know to be successful in that endeavor. So with that, let me hand it over and introduce you to Grant Hensel. Grant, we're so glad you're here today.
Absolutely. Thank you. And great to be here. I will get the joke out of the way right away that yes, it is funny that my name is Grant and that I work with the Google Ad Grant. So I apologize for that. I do promise that the name came first. But so excited to be here and share about a resource that is, I think, underappreciated and maybe underpublicized in the nonprofit community. And I will focus on a couple things in today's session. So what it is, making sure that we all understand that, who's eligible for it, and then ways that it can be utilized to help promote your nonprofit's mission and increase your impact. So we will dive right in. And to start us off, we have a really quick poll, which we'll do through Zoom, just to get a sense. So how familiar are you with the Google Ad Grant? Okay, we have answers coming in. Thank you, everyone. Looks like currently not very familiar is in the lead, followed by somewhat and not at all. We have a few people who are very familiar. Excellent. Okay, 90%, 92%. Cool. So it looks like most people are not very familiar or somewhat familiar. I'll share the results. That's very interesting. Thank you. And then secondary question, derivative of that is your organization using the Google Ad Grant to your knowledge right now? Let's see. Okay, so most people have never used it. Some folks used to, but do not currently. A couple getting started and a couple have for some time. Okay, wonderful. Yeah, so that's great. So this will be very helpful, especially if you're relatively new to the grant. But even if you do have some experience, there will definitely be some actionable things that you can take away and use. I'm going to share the results. Okay, fantastic. So to start us off, what is the Google Ad Grant and how can it help my nonprofit organization? The really short summary, which you've maybe heard, is that the Google Ad Grant gives 501c3 nonprofits $10,000 a month of credit to spend on ads in Google search. And we'll look at how this works and make it really tangible. But that's the idea, $10,000 a month, which goes on forever. As long as you continue following the ad grant rules, it goes on, until the end of time, basically. And it's always $10,000. It's credit, so it's not like actual cash you're receiving. It's almost like a gift card that can just be used in a Google Ads account. So to give an example of how this works, if you've searched for something in Google, which we probably have all done very recently, there is the search box at the top, as you know, where you type in whatever you're searching for, and then there are the results. And oftentimes, a couple of the results at the top will be ads, and there will be this really small symbol that says ad, which lets you know that. And it's actually easy to miss. But these are the ads that the Google Ad Grant pays for. So sometimes you might see other ads that have images, or they're shopping ads where you can buy things. That is separate. The Google Grant is just for these text ads that show up right at the top. And this is an example of an organization that we work with, actually, and how they're using it. So this organization is called the COPD Foundation. So COPD is a respiratory condition, and the foundation connects people to support and so forth related to that. They have a really cool free screening tool that people can take and see if they are at an elevated risk for COPD. And so the perfect person to fill out that tool is someone who's wondering, do I have COPD? Am I at risk? And the cool thing about the ad grant, about Google advertising in general, is that you're targeting people based on their intentions. So if you're advertising like on Facebook or on a display ad, on a website, on a billboard, you're primarily targeting people based on demographics. I want to reach 18 to 45-year-old, females in the metro Atlanta area or something like that, which is great. And for some things, that's a wonderful approach. For something like this, yes, there are demographic trends that would indicate someone maybe is more at risk, but really you just want anyone who's wondering if they're at risk. And so this is the perfect way to reach those people, because that's often what most people do. If they have a question, they type it into Google, and you're now reaching people who specifically are wondering if they have COPD at this exact moment. And you can bring them to your website and provide helpful resources to them. So if someone clicked on this ad, they would go to the COPD Foundation's website. They'd be able to take the screener tool because it would take them specifically to that page for the tool. And the cool thing is, like, thousands of people have taken this test as a result of this ad and others like it. So that is how the Google Grant works. It lets you connect your content and your website to what people are searching for and what they're caring about in the moment that they care about it. So it's a very powerful tool if used correctly. A couple other examples are as follows. So one of the nice things about the Google Grant is that you can use it for multiple websites. If you have a primary website, you can advertise that. And if you have other websites, you can advertise those as well. This is a website that's owned by the Rotary Foundation, Rotary International. They have their main website, rotary.org. And then they also have other sites. This one is called endpolio.org, which is for their polio eradication campaign. And as long as you own the domain, so it can't be like facebook.com/your nonprofit, it would have to be something that you actually own. But as long as you own the website, you can also promote that through the ad grant. And we'll talk more about that as well. And then finally, a fun example that we like to share is that the Google Ad Grant is a really great tool for reaching people related to trending or popular topics. A few years ago, former President George H.W. Bush passed away, and it was all over the news. And also in the news was the fact that he had a service dog named Sully. And a lot of people were Googling service dog Sully. And this organization, America's Vet Dogs, which we work with, is the organization that trained Sully. And so people are searching for service dog Sully. And so America's Vet Dogs put up a page, and we created an ad for them that was all about Sully the service dog. And this led to like a lot of people clicking on the link, going to the America's Vet Dogs website, learning more about their organization and mission, and like lots of people signing up to volunteer, lots of people asking to have them come as like a speaker. So very cool. And the nice thing is that this happens so fast. So like you could make a page, but it's going to be hard to outrank in the organic search results like CNN, for example. But with the ad grant, you can jump to the top of the page and get a lot of that exposure. So just a few examples, and we'll share many more, but that's how it works. The nice thing about the Google Grant is that normally if someone clicked on this ad and you were a for-profit, for example, you would be paying for that click. Maybe it's $1, maybe it's $2. With the Google Ad Grant, the click comes out of your credit. So it comes out of your $10,000, and you can only spend $10,000 in the month. So you're never spending real money on these clicks, which is very cool. So that is a really quick example. I will answer this really quick question from Heather. How do you get the bigger ad? Usually, isn't it just the small paragraph at the top? So yes, these little sections down here, this FAQs and home, these are called site link extensions, and they are added components of the ad that will sometimes show up. They won't always show up, and they won't always have these words under them. Sometimes it'll just be the links and they'll be really small. But they are like an added component for that Google will sometimes use to basically get your ad more clicks. And they're called ad extensions. There are other ones as well, but this is one of them. Yes. And I'll answer this really quick question as well. These are great. How is the valuation of each click determined? Are some more valuable than others? Yes. So it happens as a result of an auction. So right now, I would guess that we were probably the only person bidding on Service Dog Sully, because I don't know who else would be advertising on that. But if we go back to here, do I have COPD? Other people were advertising on this. This other organization was as well. About a different condition. And the way it works is that And this is also a .org. So I'm guessing that this is a nonprofit and that they're also using the ad grant. Both of us, there are ways that we can be, I don't want to get too much into the details. It's basically an auction where both parties indicate how much they're willing to pay. And in this example of the Google ad grant, Google also takes into account how likely is someone to do something, like take some sort of action once they get to your website. So part of the reason that we probably outranked them is because we had a really good call to action of them taking this screening tool, and we were measuring if people actually did. And so that tells the Google ad grant system, like when people click on this link, good things happen. And that may or may not be the case on this other link. So that I'm happy to chat more about that. But that is the really basic explanation of how it works. Is it's a real-time auction that determines what the price is for each click. Okay, thank you. Eligibility, really quick. Any 501c3 that is not a hospital, not a school, and not a government agency is eligible for the Google grant. So that's like 95% of all nonprofits. If you're on this call, you're most likely eligible, unless you're a hospital, a school, or a government agency. If we have any international folks joining us, the Google grant is also available in dozens of other countries as well. And it's sort of the equivalent to 501c3 status in those other countries. So that's how it works. This is how you go about acquiring the Google grant. And I believe the slides will be distributed, so don't feel like you have to write all this down, but it is essentially a 3-step process. And it's a little bit complicated, but it's not overwhelming. And the nice thing about the Google grant is that anyone who applies correctly and is actually eligible will receive the grant. So it's not like a traditional grant where there's 100 people that apply and only 10 that get it. If 100 people apply and they all do the process correctly and they're all eligible, all 100 will get it. We get this for our clients, like the grant, we help them get it, and we have 100% success rate. So it's doable. The way it works, and I'll just give the quickest explanation, is that it starts off with Google for Nonprofits, which is google.com/nonprofits is the website. And if you already have an account with Google for Nonprofits, you basically set up Google Analytics and conversion tracking on your website, which we'll talk about a little bit more later. And then you can go through the Google grant application process in the Google for Nonprofits portal. And again, happy to share more about all of this. If you are not yet a member of Google for Nonprofits, you will be able to basically claim your Google for Nonprofits account using a validation token that an organization called TechSoup can provide. And if you already have an account with TechSoup, you can just log in, you can get the validation token, you can put it into Google for Nonprofits, and then your Google for Nonprofits account will be activated. If you're not registered for TechSoup, you can register for TechSoup, and then you'll get your validation token, then you'll enroll in Google for Nonprofits, and you'll be ready to go. So that is the process. TechSoup, Google for Nonprofits, Google Ad Grant. And again, we'll share more about this. There's a resource that we have at the end. It's called like the ultimate guide to the Google Ad Grant, which you'll be able to download for free, which goes into more detail on some of this stuff. But that's the really quick, just so you have a general sense of how it all works. Okay, so now once you have the Google Ad Grant, what should you do with it? And what are ways that the Google Ad Grant can be helpful? We're going to share 6 examples of ways that the Google Grant, that we've seen it be helpful for our clients. And they'll be all across the board to give you a sense of all the different ways it can be useful. So way number 1, probably the most obvious, is driving awareness. So this is a human services organization that's a client of ours that is trying to reach people who themselves are family members with intellectual disabilities and make them aware of the services that Penmar Human Services provides. So people searching for, anything that's related to any of the services that they provide, they have ads running that take people to the appropriate page on their website to learn more about that service. Selling tickets is a great one. And this is like slowly, hopefully coming back in our maybe post-COVID world. Selling tickets is a great use of the ad grant. So any symphonies, orchestras, performing arts organizations, the Google grant can be a great way to drive ticket sales. Sharing thought leadership and like Georgia Center for Nonprofits also would have been a great example to use for this as well. But the Google grant is a great way to, if you have content that you've produced that's helpful to your audience, the Google grant is a great way to get more people to see that content and benefit from it. Promoting events. This is a botanic garden which uses the Google grant to promote events that they have and also the use of their spaces, they have beautiful gardens, as wedding venues or event venues, which can also drive revenue for them, which is really nice. Engaging donors. This one has some caveats to it. So the Google grant is not the best channel, in my humble opinion, for immediately getting new people to donate to your nonprofit. We almost describe it as you have to date before you can propose marriage. If someone's clicking on an ad grant ad and they're coming to your website, they might be just hearing about your organization for the first time, and it's probably more productive to try and get them to read your content, watch videos, sign up for your email list, and then use that to build the relationship over time and then ask them to donate. Obviously, you still have donate buttons all over your website, so some people will, but it's typically not an immediate thing. People typically need to warm up to an organization a little bit before they invest money in it. But there are always creative approaches. This is a Habitat for Humanity, which uses the Google grant to communicate with people who are trying to donate household items like a refrigerator. Habitat for Humanity Restore is a store where people can donate household items, and then Habitat for Humanity sells them and uses the proceeds to fund home building projects. And this organization provides free pickup. So while unfortunately not that many people Google, I have too much money and I need to get rid of it, a lot of people do Google, as it turns out, donate refrigerator free pickup, because they have a refrigerator, they want to get rid of it, and they'd like for someone to pick it up and deal with it for free. And so they, as a result, get tens of thousands of dollars of in-kind donations each month, which is fantastic. And then finally, attracting visitors. Any in-person venues, so aquariums, zoos, JCCs, YMCAs, any museums, anything like that where there's a physical component and you're trying to bring people in, the Google grant can be very helpful. And these are just a few examples. There are thousands more, and all of them can be very helpful, but this hopefully gives you a sense of what might be out there. Okay, so let's dive a little bit more into the nitty-gritty of what does it actually look like to have and operate a Google Ad Grants account. And there are 3 levels to the way that Google Ads is set up. There's the campaign level, there's then the ad group level, and then there are the ads themselves. And for this example, we will pretend that we are a humane society. And we are trying to get, among other things, people to adopt animals. And we have a couple animals. We have cats, we have dogs, and we have some other types as well. We will definitely have a campaign which is about adoption. We will probably have other campaigns too. Maybe we have like a 5K that we do, and we have a campaign for that. We'll probably have a campaign for people who are searching for our organization's name, like they already know about us, like a branded campaign. We might have like resources for pet owners on our blog, which would be fantastic. We might have a campaign for those resources. And each campaign is essentially a thematic grouping of related ads that are all sort of aligned with the same big topic, in this case, adoption. So we have our campaign, Adopt Animals. We will then have ad groups. And since we have both cats and dogs available for adoption, we would probably do a separate ad group for each. And the reason is because if someone is Googling like adopt a cat, they probably want to adopt specifically a cat and not a dog. And so we should show them an ad that relates to adopting a cat, and we should send them to a page on our website that's all about cat adoption, not just adoption in general. Within the ad group, there are 2 components. So there are the keywords, which are those keywords that we saw back in the beginning, like, do I have COPD, or service dog Sully, things like that. So these keywords tell Google when to trigger the ads that you write. And we'll show those too. So these are the ads. So within each ad group, there are multiple ads. You have to have actually at least two. For our clients, we do three because we're overachievers, but the three ads will compete, or the two ads will compete against each other to figure out which one is the best. And they will appear, or they'll be eligible to appear when someone searches for things like adopt cats, cats to adopt, how to adopt a cat, and so forth. And similarly, ads 1 and 2 will be eligible to appear if someone Googles adopt dogs, adoptable dogs near me, dog adoption, and so forth. And the ads will compete against each other, and ultimately one will sort of emerge as the winner, and then that one will be shown more often because it'll be more people are clicking on it because it's more effective. And then Heather asks, is it better to do phrases instead of just words for keywords? So we would recommend doing both. So some people search like this. I am one of them, where it's just like words, adopt cat. Other people would be more phrases like, how do I adopt a cat? Where can I go to adopt a cat? And we just say, cover your bases and use both. Doesn't hurt. You can target an unlimited number of keywords. You can have an unlimited number of ads, unlimited number of ad groups, unlimited number of campaigns, which is really nice. And you can also choose the geography that you want to target. So if you serve the Metro Atlanta area, you could target this Adopt Animals campaign just to Atlanta. And then maybe for your resources, which are just blog posts that anyone can read, you could target those nationally to the whole state, whatever makes the most sense. So this is a really basic example of what a campaign should look like. Within the Google Ad Grant, there are compliance rules that you have to follow, which basically force you to follow the best practices. So one of those rules is there have to be multiple ad groups in each campaign. There have to be multiple ads in each ad group. You can't use single word keywords. So like cats. Cats would be too broad. Maybe they're thinking of like the play or the movie or whatever that is. Maybe they're thinking of like caterpillar, the tractor. So all of your keywords have to have at least 2 words. And then if we zoom out a little bit, this is what your overall account might look like. So you might have an adopt campaign with some ad groups. Maybe the third ad group is just adopt animals if someone's open to adopting either a cat or a dog. Maybe you have a resources campaign. Maybe you have a campaign for a 5K that you're running, and each of them have ad groups. And over time, as the account becomes more mature and you build it out more, you eventually will probably end up having, many campaigns with many, many, many ad groups. We have clients that have been with us for years and years, and they have like 100+ ad groups because we're just constantly adding more so that they can reach more people. The way I think of this, I have a sort of a silly analogy, and we'll see if it resonates for anyone, is that each keyword or each cluster of keywords is almost like a little pond of water. And the ads that you write are almost like bait that you're using to fish in that pond. And so the more ad groups you have, the more sort of reels in the line you have in all these different ponds of water where your target audience might be swimming. And so this account is covering some of those ponds, whereas this account is covering many, many more of the ponds, is going to get more people coming to the website, more people learning about their mission, and more people hopefully taking some sort of next step. So that is my fishing in ponds analogy. Thank you, Jessica. I appreciate it. And Michelle asked, do you have a guide to qualify and anticipate what can be quantify and anticipate what can be accomplished with the 10K? Yes. And we have a slide on that. So we will get to it. And if you have other questions, just let me know. But yes. Okay, let's go to our third and final poll, which is, how ready do you think your website is to make the Google Grant successful? And I apologize that this is a cheap shot because it's hard to tell. All right, let's see. Most people are in the somewhat ready bucket. Some people not very ready, some people not sure, a couple very ready. Give people just a second more. See these trickling in. Okay, I'm going to end the poll and share the results. Cool. Yeah. So most people somewhat ready, not ready, a few not sure, others very ready. Okay. So we have been helping nonprofits with the Google grant for 5.5 years. And this concept of website readiness is something that we only figured out like 2 years ago, and maybe a little bit more, but it took us a while to figure it out. And it is I think the trickiest thing about the Google grant to understand, but also the most important. So we've alluded to this a little bit, but people are searching for things that they are interested in. And those are not always the things that we want them to be interested in, unfortunately. Like, I wish that the most common search term on Google was, I need to donate all of my money right now. Unfortunately, not the case. People are searching other things, but they're not, to my knowledge, searching that often. So if we go back to our Humane Society example, these are things that people might be thinking about if they're considering adopting a dog. So if we're in our adoption campaign, they might be thinking about, is it expensive? How long does it take? Is there anyone nearby? Do I need to do anything in advance to prepare? And so forth. And in a perfect world, we would have content on our website, whether it's a blog post or a page, that talks about each of these things. And you can do keyword research, and we can help with this, but it's possible to do keyword research and say, okay, a lot of people are actually searching for this, cost of adopting a dog question, and no one's really doing this. What do I need to do in advance to prepare? So that lets you prioritize, okay, we really want to have an article about this. This one's not as important. But the importance of this, and the reason we make such a big deal about it, is that the Google Ad Grant, the algorithm that runs it behind the scenes, is based on relevance. So if someone Googles cost of adopting a dog, or is adopting a dog expensive, and you just send them to your homepage, Google is smart enough to tell that you're not answering the question, and that it's related, but not like really exactly what they were looking for. And so Google will not show your ad as often, which is really frustrating, because you're like, this person is clearly interested in adopting a dog. We have dogs available. Why is my ad not showing? And the reason is because it's not relevant. So what we'd recommend is that when you figure out these things, and we can help you, when you figure out what people are searching for, having content on your website that just nails the answer to the question. So someone Googling cost of adopting a dog, they're going to click on this. Like, they're going to click on something that says, this is exactly what it is, and here's how it all works. And they're also going to read that page because it's going to be really relevant to them. They're probably not going to hit the back button right away because it's giving them the answer they want. And what you can do is you can use your ads to send people to the correct page. So someone searches for cost of adopting a dog, your ad appears, and it sends them right to the page that they're going to be most interested in. And so this, to get back to whose question was it? Michelle. To get back to Michelle's question, this is a really big determining factor of how much of the $10,000 an organization is able to spend. It's going to be based on how much, and we call it promotable, website content they have, and how big is the audience of people that are searching for it. So we have a free tool, which is at nonprofitmegaphone.com/website-rubric. You don't have to put in your email or anything, but you can just, like, if you want to now or you want to later, you can just go to our website.com/website-rubric, and there will be questions for you to fill out. It's just a little multiple choice, and it will give you a score that gives you a sense of how much potential does your website currently have with the ad grant. And the biggest component with website readiness is there are two. One, how many people are in the geographic area that you're targeting? If you're targeting, the whole country, that is a lot of people. If you're targeting like one very small zip code that there's not a lot of people in, that obviously means there's less total opportunity, which is fine. And, for your organization, reaching all the people in that zip code is success. And that's wonderful. And that means that you probably won't spend anywhere close to all of the $10,000. And that's totally fine. You can just think of it as effectively an unlimited budget. So geographic area is the big one, and then number of pages of promotable content. And we would say a promotable page is something that is on a topic that people are searching for, has information about that topic, like more than just a couple sentences, is on one topic, so people know exactly what they're getting. And in our perfect world, has some form of call to action, like some sort of next step that people can take, whether it's, adopting or learning more, or watching a video, whatever it is. That is a perfect page to promote with the ad grant. And if you have, 20 pages like that, you're going to do really well. If you have 2 pages like that, there's maybe an opportunity to add more content. So that's the website rubric. Yes, and we will share all these links. Emily and team will share all these out. So no worries. Okay, I'm going to answer a quick few frequently asked questions. I have one other thing to share about the little guide that we have that you can download, and then we can just go into Q&A. So what types of nonprofits benefit the most? We'd think of 3 big categories, although there are always exceptions, and we have plenty of examples of people outside these categories that still do really well. The 3 categories are: 1, any nonprofit that needs to reach a large audience. The Google grant is going to be fantastic because it's like the ad spend is paid for by Google. If there's a large audience, a lot of people are going to be searching, and it's just going to be an incredible way to reach them. If you serve a large geographic area, that often works really well. If you have a mission that just a lot of people are concerned with and care about, that works really well also. Additionally, nonprofits with revenue models that benefit from exposure. So if you're a JCC, YMCA, Habitat for Humanity, zoo, aquarium, museum, performing arts organization, anything like that, where you just need more people to know about you because you offer a great thing that they're probably going to want to take advantage of. The Google grant is also a great resource. And then finally, anyone else that a lot of people are searching for. So basically all animal organizations do really well, which is interesting. There's just a lot of people that care about animals. Anything that's related to advocacy on any sort of broad popular topic tends to do really well. Anything that's tied into current events, there will always be a lot of people searching for current events. And if you relate to that somehow, or certain types of current events, you will also do really well. If you're not like a direct hit for one of these items on the list, you still probably have a lot of potential. And we can help you think through that if that's ever helpful. But if you're in one of these categories, it's a major opportunity for sure. Okay, and then finally, to answer in depth, do nonprofits spend the full $10,000? And the answer is no. Most nonprofits do not spend the full $10,000. Everyone gets the same amount. And the way that Google basically came up with the $10,000 amount is they said, what would be an amount that for 99% of nonprofits would be more than enough? They said, 10,000. And so it's that way by design. It's a lot by design, and most people will not spend the full amount, which is totally fine. Again, as mentioned, it'll really come down to geography and promotable content. That'll be the 2 main factors. One of the things that we really encourage people to think about is don't worry about how much of the credit you're spending, because in some ways it's just monopoly money. It's not real money, it's credit. What's more interesting is how many people are you bringing to your website? Are they the right people? And what are they doing once they get there? Are they reading your content? Are they watching videos? Are they filling out forms? That's like the actual outcome that you're trying to drive. As mentioned, the budget is more than enough and you'll never need all of it. So you can basically think of it as being unlimited. And anytime you add more content to the website, there will basically be always enough credit available that you can just promote that as well. And you don't have to, it's the one area of your budget that you can almost think of as being unlimited. Okay, this is that guide. It's just nonprofitmegaphone.com/guide. And again, we'll send out this link. It will download as a document. So it won't open, it'll just download as I think a Word doc actually. And it's 20 or 25 pages long. It goes into a lot of detail on everything we've talked about today, and much more detail as well. So just a free resource in case that would be helpful. Okay, Let's see. Yes. Okay. So that is what we've got. Any questions? I will start looking through the chat. Let's see. Heather's, do most nonprofits actually use the full 10K? So yeah, we just answered that. No, most do not. Let's see. Cool. I think we've got all the questions in the chat so far. So yes, any other questions, feel free to just toss them in and we will answer them.
Thank you so much, Grant. We've got a few more coming in. Any suggestions about how to set up the ads?
Yes, I have a few suggestions. There are two types of ads within the Google Ads platform. One is called expanded text ads, and one is called responsive search ads. And we recommend using both of them. So the Google grant, you have to have at least 2 ads in each ad group. What we typically do is we have 2 expanded text ads and then 1 responsive search ad. And the responsive search ad often does really well. The 2 types of ads are different. So in extended text ads, there are 2 components. There's headlines. So it's a 30-character headline, a 30-character headline, a 30-character headline, and they're separated by little vertical bars. And then there are 2 90-character descriptions. And sometimes all 3 headlines will show, sometimes just 2, sometimes both descriptions will show, sometimes just 1. We'd recommend 1, putting the keywords that ad group is related to in the headlines and in the descriptions, because it'll show up in bold if people have searched for that. And 2, we'd recommend that you use as much of the text as possible, as much of the space as possible, so that the ad is as big as possible. And then finally, a small third thing, we'd recommend that you capitalize every word in the headline and in the description. For whatever reason, that just helps a little bit in the tests we've done. And so we'd recommend that. And then responsive search ads are similar. You just give it lots of different headlines and lots of descriptions, and it will mix and match them algorithmically and figure out which one is the best. So if you have both of those running, you're in really good shape.
Excellent. Do you recommend that nonprofits work with an outside agency to monitor the ads, or is this something that you could train someone in-house to do and to manage?
Totally. It's both approaches have pros and cons. We do this for clients, and we also know that some people do not want to, they just want to do it in-house. And so that's why we produce the free resources. So it's certainly doable. I will say that it is a lot of work. The way when we hire people, we train them full-time for 3 months to be able to be really good at the Google Ad Grant, and then have lots of training thereafter. So it is definitely a time commitment. But if it's something that's really important to your strategy and you really want to understand it yourself as deeply as you possibly can, then it's absolutely doable. There are resources available, some of which we've already mentioned here. So it's certainly an option.
And I think that answer really kind of answers this next question from Amy, but what is the value to nonprofits of bringing in someone like Nonprofit Megaphone to best utilize that Google Ad Grant money?
Definitely. Yeah. I think of it the way I think of tax accounting or CPAs. I like to think of myself as a smart person, but I do not do my own taxes, and we do not do our own accounting because there are people that do that all day, every day. They are specialists. I don't want to get it wrong. I really want to get it right, and I don't want to think about it. So for an organization that knows that the Google Ad Grant can be really impactful, but doesn't have the capacity internally to spend a lot of time on it. And I think the biggest thing is that the Google grant changes. It every month, there's something that's just slightly new and slightly different. And the number one reason we get from people saying would you mind helping us, when they've been managing the grant themselves in the past, is that the changes caught up with them. So they had a person who was doing it, and then that person went to another organization. And so now they're trying to figure it out, or it changed and now they have to redo a bunch of their campaigns and they don't have time to. So yeah, it's all we do. We serve 492 clients, I want to say. So we've seen almost everything, and it's all we do all day, every day. So that's basically, yeah. But people don't have to use us by any stretch of the imagination.
But it's that sustainability question, which is a constant knock at the door for nonprofits. How do we keep things moving as things change, right? Okay, we got a few more coming in here. So is the grant use it or lose it? So if you don't use all of your credits each month, do they roll over? Are they gone for that month? How does that work?
It is use it or lose it. And it's actually use it or lose it by the day. So it breaks out to $329 per day, and there's a little bit of flux on that, which is complicated, but basically you have that credit amount each day. You can spend up to that, at which point it will stop, and then it'll start over for the next day. So it does not roll over. But for the vast majority of nonprofits, it doesn't matter because they can't use, maybe they use $7,000 in a month, and that's fine.
Right. So it's called a Google Ad grant, but we've already covered that it's not cash, it's credits. Does that count as an in-kind donation? Can you, report that way? What's going on there?
Yes, I've seen people do it both ways. I've seen people do it both ways, and I've never seen issues result from either approach. I would probably just chat with your accounting folks, and if you have policies for how you approach that, then I would just follow those. There does not appear to be official Google documentation on how it should be reported. Some people report it as in-kind, some people don't. I wish I had a better answer.
No, that's why we have the accountants, right? We're back to those subject matter experts to get us from day to day. Okay, let's see. Michelle wants to know, what does the process look like? And with something we may have covered, but beyond the initial signing up, and how quickly can you move through that?
Yes. Once you are signed up for Google for Nonprofits, you're in your Google for Nonprofits account, there will be a button that says Google Ad Grants, and a headline that says Google Ad Grants, and a little button under that says apply. And it will give you instructions for how to do that. Basically, before you can submit that application, you will want to have Google Analytics, which is a free analytics tool that Google provides, installed on your website, and some form of conversion tracking set up. And conversion tracking is ways to monitor what people are doing on your website and when they're doing the important things. So like if you have a newsletter sign up form, you'd probably want to set up tracking so that you can see if someone clicks on an ad, comes to the website, and then fills out that form, as an example, or someone watches a video, or someone downloads a PDF. Once that conversion tracking is set up, it'll walk you through like creating a new Google Ads account and not putting in billing information and things like that. You will be able to submit your application. Google will review it. Oftentimes it is as quick as a couple days. Sometimes it can take like a week or two, depending on how backed up they are. And then you will get an email if everything went smoothly that says, congratulations, you have received the Google Ad Grant, and you'll be off to the races.
So it's simple, but also there is prep work, groundwork you want to lay there in order to maximize those odds of getting that.
Yes. And Elizabeth, thank you. We have a CPA in the house. Her nonprofit clients are recording the Google Ad Grant as an in-kind donation. Yes. And there is reporting. So you'll be able to see the exact amount of the credit that you received and utilized. Fantastic.
Perfect. And that answers our last question there, which was, is there a way to track how much activity the ad grant is generating? And knowing Google products in general, of course, there's reporting, right?
Yes, there is a ton of reporting. There's almost too much reporting, but yes, you'll be able to track how much you spent of the grant, how many people saw your ads, how many people clicked on your ads, how many people did any of those conversion actions on your website. Google Analytics will be able to show you how many pages did people view, how long did they view those pages, did they bounce, like did they hit the back button right away, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So yes, absolutely.
Grant, a lot of information. Thank you so much for your time.